Welcome to Reflections, a program where we discuss values and virtues for the transformation of the individual and the society at large. I am Father George Ehusani, and today I have an old friend in the studio, a great friend, Professor Osagae Eghosa.
How are you, sir?
Do you pronounce the G in your name?
It's Ehusani Osagae.
Professor Ehusani Osagae.
Yes.
Professor Osagae is the Vice-Chancellor of the Igbenidion University in Okada near Benin City. Before then, he was the Director of the Center for Peace and Conflict Management at the University of Ibadan. And before then, he was in South Africa, University of Transkei, as the Head of Department of Political Science. And between then and now, Professor Osagae has been in several universities as a fellow, as visiting professor, Emory University,
yes, Emory.
Cambridge University,
Cambridge, yes.
Sweden, United Nations University. Professor Osagae has published a lot of works in learned journals and books, over 100 of them, on various topics, from federalism to ethnicity, the governance to ethics, name it. He is an expert on the issues that are bothering Nigeria today. Professor Osagae is an expert in restructuring, the issues that are bothering Nigeria today. So just before we started in the studio, I said, look, I hold you responsible for the problems of Nigeria because you are a professor of federalism. If we are not getting federalism right, we should hold the professors responsible. You are a professor of ethnicity. An expert in it. So if our ethnic groups are not relating well, we should hold these professors responsible. Professor Osagae, once again, welcome to the studio.
Thank you for everything.
Professor Osagae and I just were at a conference recently organized by the Department of State Services on national security and stability in Nigeria, and he was one of the key speakers at that conference. How do we manage our multi-ethnic heterogeneous society and have peace and unity? What is your reaction to the calls, all the calls from left and right for restructuring today? The IPOB call for Biafra, realization of the Biafra, the northern youth giving a date to Igbos to leave the north, and then the calls from all over the place. Practically no section of Nigeria is satisfied with our present arrangement. What is your reaction?
Well, three reactions. The first is to know that when you have waves of this kind, they have their own dynamics, they have their own triggers, they have their own dispersals, and nobody wants to be left out of this ferment. So one provokes the other, and everyone likes to do it. This is like the buzzword. This is like a movement, but it's a wave. Let's call it a wave. And it's not the first time we're having this wave. We've had waves of agitations and so on. The second thing is, what is common to Nigeria is common to many heterogeneous polities.
Yes.
And you have waves all over, from time to time. Some very uncompromising, some violent, some not so violent, some benign, but waves all the same. Thirdly, Nigeria belongs to the category of societies that are characterized as deeply divided societies.
Unfortunately.
Well, they only just come with challenges. It's not unfortunate. Because the United States of America, for a long time, and in many instances, even today, it's a deeply divided society. Belgium is a deeply divided society. Spain is a deeply divided society. United Kingdom is deeply divided. South Africa, under apartheid, after apartheid, is deeply divided. Greece, is deep. So it's not new. Now, the thing to remember is that India was a hotbed of those deep divisions, and they were usually very violent. Lost many of their prime ministers because of those deep divisions.
And it is those divisions that led to even Pakistan
at independence.
Yes.
But even after our independence, in Pakistan itself, there are all kinds of problems. But you see, today, India has sort of domesticated through regulation, some of those kinds of conflicts. You still get pockets of them every now and then. It just shows that the challenge posed by societies that are deeply divided are of that nature. The ability to, in one fell swoop, deal with all of those issues is one that no society has really come up with. So they evolve, they grow, very turbulent. They go through transitions and transformations. Sometimes, you make progress. Other times, you retrogress. Sometimes, you get like, this is the end of the world. Other times, people are stunned to say what's going on. But I think in the particular case of Nigeria, we have two elements. One is that we're a federal system. What federalism does is provides a framework for continuous bargaining and negotiations, because that's how we started. People forget that, the kind of system we operate today didn't happen overnight. It has evolved over time through accretion, through cumulative processes to become what we are today. I mean, look at restructuring, for instance. Today, people are clamoring for state police. And irony of ironies, some of the guys in the forefront of this clamor are people from the so-called ethnic minority states.
Okay.
We forget that it was the Willing Commission recommendation. That was the panel set up on the problems of minorities and how to
before independence
in 1956, to inquire into the fears of the minorities and how to resolve them. Now, one of the key problems, the key fears that minorities had in this country was the use of, community police and local police and regional police.
We saw it in northern Nigeria.
In all over. I mean, in the West, it was the same thing. So it was minorities that went to, Willing and said to the committee, you must federalize the police. Mm-hmm. But see today what is going on. Yeah. Now, that's not all. For a long time, the minorities of this country wanted a very strong and dominant center. That was the antidote, the counterweight to
the regional domination. Yes.
Precisely. But today, everyone seems to be singing the same tune because, as I say, it's a ferment. It's a period to talk. But remember, and this is the final statement on this, as long ago as 1953, when we had these kinds of crises and there were agitations, in the colonial period, the motion for self-government in 1956 had been moved, and the NPC leaders said, no, we're not ready for it.
We're not ready, yes.
So we want you to amend that and substitute for it, as soon as practicable. And the guys said no. And there was chaos in the House of Reps, and the NPC leaders went back. I remember the action group, committee went to Kano, and they were beaten up. There were all kinds of things. Now they got back, and when the British government then said, "Look, there's a constitutional crisis. Let's meet and see what we can do," the West came up with one, major demand, that they wanted Lagos to be part of the Western region, without which the region would consider secession.
Mm-hmm.
And
Lagos was a colony of its own.
It was a colony of its own. Now, the response from the colonial authority was to say, we'll force you to remain in that union. We are not going to grant you the right to secession. Now, in 1950, before then, some of the delegations, were very strong on things like using per capita principle for revenue allocation and for allocation of seats in the House of Representatives. And, these demands were so strong that the guys were saying, if you don't give us that, we'll consider secession. Now, so you see, we've had a long history. In 82 actually, it started with the late Aboderin, who was the proprietor of the Punch, I think. By 1982, certain elements within the NPN had come to the conclusion that it was not likely that, people from other parts of their constituencies could become president. So they say, look, the way things are going, we see that there's a structural basis for what they regarded as regional domination. And so Abuja flew the kite. This is the time to consider confederation. So all through 1982, 83, 84, even after
the coup,
this whole debate was on. And I remember that the federal government, it was General Buhari, who was head of state at the time, had to issue a statement banning all forms of confederation debates. And then you play forward, you get to the annulment period in 1993.
And then it brought the issues again. And so it looks like, you can say there are certain things that seem to trigger these kinds of agitations. Feelings, perceptions of marginalization or non-inclusion, perhaps.
All of the things get rolled into one. Once the wave begins, even forgotten issues then come to be raised. For instance, one of the funny sides of this debate that I've heard, is the one that says, in 1960, 1963, we had regions that were so powerful, and so on. But the evidence does not suggest so.
No.
Because by 1963, part of the crisis we were having was that the federal government was beginning to counter the powers of the regions. The federal government was actually becoming
too powerful
for the parliamentary system, and so on. So, the state of emergency in the Western region, the creation of the Midwest state, the inconclusive elections in 1964-65. So, I think that people, forget. But even if they don't forget, the point is that these are not entirely unexpected things in societies that are dynamic.
Some of these highlights you have brought out, perhaps part of our problem is the fact that we don't do history. The recent history of Nigeria, because these are relatively recent events, how many people who are active today in the polity have a grasp of these historical realities, especially the agitations, the various agitations that came shortly before independence, that are responsible for the structures as presently constituted, and then after independence, meaning even up to the time of the annulment of
but think of it. The first thing is that the issues as they have crystallized over the years remain the same, more or less.
Okay.
They remain the same, more or less. We're talking about issues of, who has access, who's going to be at the center, population census. We're talking about revenue allocation. These are the same issues. But I think the bigger problem is the unbelievable discontinuities in our national trajectory. We reinvent the wheel all the time.
We don't build on the progress made.
Unfortunately, because we had those years that you might regard as the years the cankerworm age.
Yes.
But those were the years when we wanted to blot away the past. It was look, let's just put this past behind us. Let's not even. And remember that as part of the experimentations we had in the name of transition, we even had to decide whether to allow some people, participate in politics or not. Now, these were, the kinds of things that, aided the discontinuities that we're talking about. The other thing, of course, is that in the present dispensation, and, we have looked at this in different areas, there is a class that seems to be a military begotten class. That evolved and became very powerful, under successive military governments.
The dominant class in politics today is military begotten.
So it's actually a class of army brought-ups.
Yes.
And, the mindset that they have, the inclinations, the kinds of tendencies that we have seen in them are simply reproductions of those military tendencies.
I mean, the command and control, centralized,
the impunity, if we like to forgive it, the lawlessness, executive lawlessness. All of these things are elements of.
Somebody said, I think it's Bishop Kuka who said recently that of the 36 states, 28 states are ruled by people who are connected in some way to the military.
Well, that's the evidence. I mean, and it's true, but it means that we must be thankful to God, I think, that in spite of this inheritance, we have not had any reason to say maybe we should push back to the military.
Oh, back no way.
Thank God. Now it means that the guys have seen, that maybe they stand a better chance for themselves and for our country if they're able to function that way. Now, how do we get them out of these military traps and these attachments that they have? That is the other issue. But, if you have studied, the character of the elite since 1999, you would find that beginning from 2007, we're beginning to have a new class of politicians, emerging, that had little or nothing to do with the military. And I dare say that, over the next 2 elections, we would have that military passed.
But no, if it is passed, but the new crop of people we are talking about now, the military culture of command and control and executive lawlessness and impunity, isn't it still being carried along?
Well, not as passionately as the guys that were the direct inheritors. Well, you're talking social formations here. You're talking, social structure. The point is that some of these guys have had other experiences. One of the things is that there are people, many of them, that have come from the diaspora.
Yes.
To take positions here.
Yes.
And I see that some of those diaspora elements have a different slant of politics.
Okay.
And one is not saying that that's where the salvation lies. I mean, I'm not saying that all of our politicians should come from the diaspora, but a good mix.
But I know a few that came from the diaspora, and I never really noticed much of a difference in their modus operandi from those that are homegrown with all that military or whatever. You look across and see these diaspora guys, and they have functioned pretty much the same way.
It's going to take time, but my overall point is you need to have a constellation of different forces. Some dilution, some give and take, some push and pull. All of those dynamics must play out. I remember there was a political science professor. He has left the House of Reps now. For the period he was there, there was some element of what you might consider to be a difference in the committees that he chaired.
Okay.
Even the members of the House acknowledged that.
That there's a difference here.
Yes, there was a difference, and he made a difference. It's a shame that we're talking about individuals and these kinds of people rather than the whole system and so on. But you see, we have proven to be a little impervious to those changes, and we're trying to say, why is this the case? The enduring structures from the military are still there. And you would find that, when we are recruiting candidates for office, we still have a way of going back to that military mindedness. It's an Obasanjo and then the General Buhari.
Because we keep asking, is he tested?
Precisely.
What has he done before?
Where would you find those guys that were tested? Because don't forget, the military had over 30 years.
Yes.
And so when you're looking for those who've been tested, they can only come from
the
those
military.
30 years.
Yes.
The guys who were there prior to 1966, who were there 1979, 83, they're either dead or too old.
Yes.
So, but one hopes that, with the kinds of things that agencies like your agency are doing, that people will become a little more enlightened about the kinds of things that are going on.
General Ishola Williams,
yes,
at that conference we attended, talked about the middle class. And he says that the middle class, in his judgment, are intellectually bankrupt, morally bankrupt, which is why they put in idiots as leaders. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I mean, see, look, we're talking, social formations, social relations, the kinds of things that produce tendencies that, we can describe in the manner that General Williams, did at that conference. But I think, you see, this middle class, what is its social base? What values, define
form them and define them.
What values define this class? Are those values different from the other classes? For instance, the culture of poverty, the the get rich quick syndrome that we all have, the feeling that you don't have to work hard to get very rich.
So there's not such a marked difference between
Actually,
the poor class and the middle class.
Let's put it like this: when we use those categories, middle class and so on, I see that we're trying to lift categories from
Europe and America,
and try to use them here.
And we are fluid in our own circumstances.
They are too fluid. Because, as I think of it, listening to General Williams, we are captive forces, all of us, whether we describe ourselves as middle class or upper class, whatever. Captive forces of, our very pristine communities. And take just one example. We all seem to think that the essence of living is to become prosperous.
To acquire things.
Just to acquire things and have very conspicuous.
And even our churches have fallen
These
for
are
it
the same
now.
things. You see, the things are generalized everywhere. The young people that are growing up have a sense that, you can be very poor in the morning.
In the evening, you are a multimillionaire.
And so on. All you need is to get connected and so on. So this middle class is a mythical construction. I think that we can only talk about people that have gone to school, and we try to categorize them as people who belong to a class. But the boundaries are too fluid.
And even talking about people who have gone to school is what kind of school? Because, these days people come out of university, apologies to you guys, you're in a private university and I'm sure you are ensuring high standard. With the quality of person that you are, I believe that your school should be producing people.
It is, thank God.
Otherwise, we have a lot of people who are going to school coming out of universities, and whereas they hold certificates that say that they have been found worthy in character and in learning.
But you see, Father Ehusani, look, let's get serious. You have people who go to school who are totally deprived and disoriented, who don't even as much as know when they're in school, what they are going through and when they're going to finish. You have people who, are so poor, they cannot even afford to be in school.
I can imagine.
You have people who, it's a whole lot, of problems that these young people go through. Sometimes you see young people and, you must praise them that they are able to get things together at all. They are so scattered. You gave the example at that conference of young people who have become so disillusioned and so
they have
frustrated.
Nothing to lose.
They don't have anything to lose.
Yeah.
From morning tonight, go around our major cities. You find hordes of young people,
hundreds,
idle young people
roaming about.
And I tell you, many of those guys are supposed to be in school.
Yeah.
They are actually in school. Now, but you see, let's not put all the blame on those students and their graduates. What manner of schools do we have? That's key. It is now we have professors of English that don't speak good English. We have lecturers in universities that really have nothing to offer. Now, it used to be said that, if you were going to be a lecturer, and we had, our stereotypes of who lecturers were. They were deviant people, There were people who were very bookish. They had no time for the cares of the world.
ABU had a lot of Marxists.
Just Marxists, they didn't dress to comply with,
any social
norms. They were just, the kinds of people that they were. But they were respected.
Yes, they were bookworms.
Bookworms.
Yes.
Okay? Now, but today you find people who say to you, well, we can't find other jobs to do.
And that's
Those are the kinds of people who teach in university.
On that note, we will take a break, and then when we come back with Professor Osagae, we will discuss more on this whole challenge of the contentious issues in our country, the discontent, the widespread discontent in our society, and what his views are.
I know, for example, at my age, there are some words till today I cannot say, but you find 3, 5, 7-year-old children just peeling it on the street, and it doesn't matter. And in fact, it is seen as a level of sophistication.
A big man was certainly handcuffed, and hair was let loose. And I had to ask some of my colleagues, are you aware that on a daily basis, the ordinary people who have committed
minor malfeasance
offenses are not only handcuffed, they are leg chained.
Yes.
But nobody talks about that.
And thrown into Black Maria.
Thrown into Black Maria. Sometimes the Black Maria is put in the sun.
The tragedy of the military coup is set in motion a range of issues that so destabilize this country. And the result is that we've ended in the last 20 or 30 years with an academic community that has become so traumatized that it has also lost the capacity to even do what intellectuals and academicians ought to do.
I have with me again in the studio my friend Professor Eghosa Osagae, Vice-Chancellor of the Igbenidion University, Professor of Political Science, and a pastor, right?
A pastor.
Great. So, Professor, welcome once again to the studio.
Thank you, sir.
Good. The last time we met, we were discussing the whole clamor for restructuring, all the agitation from north to south, east to west, this country, and you enlightened us about the fact that these are not new, and that this is not unique to Nigeria. You mentioned the US, Britain, and Spain, and Belgium, all the various forces that are at play in various countries. What we have not discussed is how are we going to manage the renewed agitations in this country so as to manage them safely and actually make progress on account of them, rather than allow these agitations now to crush Nigeria. How will Nigeria get up and grow and develop on account of the widespread discontent at the moment and agitations, and what those agitations could actually achieve for us as a society?
Well, Father, from the theory and practice of federalism, I think, what we should consider is who actually have the legitimate voices to make demands and
see them through
in a thoroughgoing federal system such as ours. Federal theory says political parties play a very
critical
role in this process, and the states themselves,
the confederating
units.
Yes.
Now, you see, let's take the states first. The states are a creation of the federal government, because rather than aggregate to become a federation, we disaggregated for the purposes of federalism. And once you have a master that has given birth to you, there's always a sense of proprietary that
yes.
We are
not equal. And
I remember when President Obasanjo was there, he used to remind the states that I was head of state when you were created. So I mean, and now you're challenging our authority.
It's kind of patronizing,
It's very patronizing. But you expect that all the time. But that's where the states themselves have a responsibility. Now you would see that for me, it's a matter of dysfunctionality on the part of the states, that it is these ethnic associations
that are now
filling that void and occupying the entire space. And we're not hearing anything from the states. The Constitution defines Nigeria as a federation of 36 states, and the states are listed.
Yes.
So in a thoroughgoing federal system, it is the states, that ought to be in the forefront of all of this. We cite the example of Canada and talk about Quebec, but that's a province. And when you even talk about referendum and so on, the Quebecois, through their provincial government, are in the forefront of this movement.
I mean, look at what happened in California.
In California
when Trump went to Paris to say, I'm not part of this, California came out and...
Precisely. You see, it's a shame. But let me tell you why the states, are dysfunctional. The states in Nigeria are not ethnic cocoons. They are actually minor federations.
Themselves.
Mini federations.
Themselves.
If you take Edo, you take Bayelsa, you take all of those states.
But Eastern Nigeria, the states are, kind of homogeneous.
They cannot be, and they are not. I'll tell you why. Remember, Father Ehusani, that all of the ethnic groups, as we know them in Nigeria today, took their names, their statuses, and their current configurations within the state of Nigeria. These groups did not exist in these forms when Nigeria did not exist.
That's true.
And, they are still in the process of constructing their identities. Within themselves, follow, notions of segmentary opposition. They are divided within
as we
are divided group. Outside. So it's the truth that all states are mini federations. Now, look, many of these agitations, if you listen carefully to what the people are alleging, and they have these grievances over, they are marginalized, they are neglected, they are discriminated against. Ask what the content of these claims are. What do you find? Oh, we don't have roads, we don't have water, we don't have, electricity, and so on. What are the state governments doing?
And they get allocations.
See.
And they raise taxes.
See, sir. 52% of the public expenditure in this country is state expenditure. They own those things. They have primary responsibility for delivering services. So, but the states are not accountable. That's the problem. If the states were not dysfunctional, many of the claims and demands made on the federal government would not happen.
Isn't it that the structures are so weak at the lower levels, meaning at the local government levels? I haven't
talked about local government.
Yeah.
No, I haven't talked about local government. I'm talking about state government.
But the structures are so weak that, let's say, the houses of assembly, for example, because when you talk about states, you mean the governance of the state, which includes the house of assembly.
You see, Father, you're coming to a point. Look at Nigeria today. The federal government is perhaps the only level of government that has elements of, what students would consider not very good, but some fine kind of governance. The National Assembly is very active. The judiciary is very active. And the executive is kept on its toes.
By everyone.
By everyone, including civil society.
Yes.
So, you see, there's so much,
focus,
check and balance, at the federal level, which is why, whether we like to admit it or not, the federal government is a working government. Now, when you go to the states, unfortunately, it's a different ball game. The legislative arms don't exist.
Yes, because they are the whims and caprices of the governor.
Even the judiciary at the level of the states is weak. And of course, except in a few states, civil society is very weak or non-existent.
Yes.
Now, this is a problem. Now, and what do you find? The states are not able to resist those pressures that come from, structures that ordinarily should be pro-federalism. Take the labor unions. Take ASU, take SANU, take NASU, take NMA. Now, these structures are so strong, but all the activities that they have
are about the center.
Precisely. Yeah. Now, in many other countries, and this is the point I want to make, if we're going to have governmentalism as a way of life, where everything begins and ends with governments, then for Christ's sake, we must go back to our federalism and hold the states responsible. I mean, today it is convenient for many states to say, well, our allocations are almost nil. But even when the allocations were not nil,
Yes.
what did they do? I think that, that's something.
There were
that we
times
should
in
talk
this
about.
country where states got 4 or 5 billion.
It's not even the money. Let me tell you something. I was in the State House of Assembly to give a lecture once, and the guys were saying, what we should do is in the spirit of equity and justice in our country. Why don't we ask that they set up, commissions for ports, so that states that have, seaports can then also clamor for derivation? And I said, you guys are not learning the lessons that Lagos State has laid down. What are these lessons? Lagos State says, we are creating local government areas. And the federal government says, you don't have a right to create local government areas. They go to court, and the government says, we're going to withhold the allocations.
For the period of time, yes.
And the Supreme Court rules that that's not the case. You don't have a right to withhold those allocations. And so the things are released. They win that. They go ahead, they say, hospitality taxes. Those things paid by tourist bodies, hotels, and so on, they belong to Lagos State. And the federal government, through the Tourism Council, comes to say no. They go to court, and Lagos State wins. In all thoroughgoing federal systems, there is such a thing as state activism. Mm-hmm. You must test the waters.
Yes, and Lagos has been testing
Lagos has been doing that. Why are the other states not following suit? So it's not simply a question of how much you get. And I keep giving the example of, KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa. In 1996, once the new constitution came into effect, South Africa does not even describe itself as a federal system, even though it runs a federal arrangement. KwaZulu-Natal, went ahead and adopted its own constitution, adopted its own anthem, and adopted its own flag. Mm-hmm. And, the central government says, no, you cannot do this. This is treasonable. And then they went to the Constitutional Court. And the Constitutional Court says, every province has a right
to have its own constitution.
So this is what states must do. And, I dare say to states, as I said on that occasion, who has stopped you from building your ports? There are private jetties.
Yes.
You can build your own jetties. Who has stopped you from building your airports? Many states are building airports.
And I think the latest that Lagos did is to go to court to win a case about dredging in the internal waters,
of course,
inland waterways.
Of course, you must test the waters. You must actively assert your authority. I mean, look, in the Second Republic, we'll remember, in your state, Bola Ige was governor. And the guys had federal housing, low-cost houses and so on. And the man said, you are interfering in our jurisdiction.
Yes.
And the federal government said, oh, no. I mean, that was not the right step to take, but they went ahead and destroyed those houses. In Anambra State, when Jim Wobodo was governor, there were roads, that he said belonged to the state,
yes.
And the federal government was taking over. They constructed those roads. He went and deconstructed them. But what do you find today? Many state governments want to hand over roads inside their state capitals. Inside their state capitals to federal government. I mean, this is irresponsibility, if you ask me. So it's all come out of the contradictions, that attended the attempt by the military to hold this country. No. It was not the intention. That's only an unintended consequence. What the military found itself challenged with was, how do you hold this country together?
Okay.
And they had to devise instrumentalities for holding the country together. During the Civil War and after the Civil War, there was consensus that what we needed was greater unity. And therefore, the military played that role. Now, outside of military rule, those instrumentalities don't seem to be, quite suitable, because, when you have a federal system and you have state branches of parties, you have, concurrent list and exclusive list and residual list, things that the military didn't have to bother with. You have a different, setting altogether, and the imperatives are, a little more complicated. So, I have always said, and this is my point, when we had, the regions in this country, in the period from the 1940s up until 1963-64, the demands from political society were for very strong and autonomous regions. Which, some would say we didn't have a choice over, because that's how the British governed us. But, we saw where that led us. There was so much division. At a point, the late Professor Billy Dudley used to describe the regions as members of a primitive international system. People forget, if you were taking goods from one region to another, you had to pay taxes. Not the kinds to pass through, not the kinds of crude things that we are doing these days. You find spikes on the roads where the guys, but those things were established. You had to pay those things, and we were so apart. Somebody was saying at that same conference he referred to that it was East for Easterners, West for Westerners, and North for Northerners. That was not good.
No,
and it led us along those very divisive paths, and inevitably we had to fight a war.
Let me cut you short here and ask, where do we go from here? I mean, you have explained how we got here. You have explained the history before the independence and how we got to where we got to. I think that a lot of the damage was done on account of the inevitable military rule.
Very good.
But then, how do we move from here and get our country back? Let people feel a sense of belonging. Let people feel that they have a state that takes care of them, and that they are counted as citizens and as regions or as states. Where do we go from here? What are your suggestions to, let's say, the National Assembly? What are your suggestions to the state governments? How do we move forward?
What I think it sounds very radical, but this is what it is. Prior to 1976, if you wanted a state, you needed to prove that that state will be viable.
Yes.
Okay? But comes the Irikefe panel that says, well, the country has been so put together. This is the military dispensation. The country has been so centralized, that viability can only be the viability of the central government. Okay? Now, that viability no longer required the constituent units to be viable.
And by then, we were getting a lot of money from oil.
When you see, this is the point. Irikefe was saying, what is important at this point, when federal government is viable, is that we optimize the access and opportunities that are available to different groups. So states became distribution outlets. They became administrative agents, and that's why we also propped up local governments.
Yes.
All of this so people could, get from the national cake. The situation has changed. Today, the states have far more responsibilities. That's why I say my idea is radical. If we brought back the principle of viability,
yes,
then many of the states cannot stand.
They will just fizzle out.
But you see, if we're going to have a meeting, call it by whatever name, a national conference or whatever, where people now know that what they desire is not to get their share of the national cake, but
there's no national cake.
They should create cakes themselves. Yes. So we need more cakes.
And consume it as they wish.
No, well, there should be more. Yes, get your money, raise it, and spend it the way you want to spend it, with little or no federal interference.
Yes.
Now, that way, I think we will be pushing up, our overall capacity for the efficacy of our federal system. So we need, they call it devolution. devolution is simply to give more responsibilities to the states so you can justify why you should, tweak the allocation formula and give the states maybe 60% and give federal government 40%. That is not the kind of thing we are looking for.
Yes.
That is still very centralist.
Yes.
We are looking
It's still about distribution.
We are not looking for distribution.
Yes.
We are looking for the states becoming productive agents themselves.
Is this the cost of oil? What people have termed the cost of oil? Because there are many parts of the world where they don't have our kind of oil. From 1957, when we started this oil exploration, and then when did we start actually getting the money? About 1970 or something. What this has meant is that Nigerians have been taken out of farming, out of their various trades.
This is a replay of the Dutch disease and what people call resource costs. Oil is not something that you really go to cultivate or to grow.
Yes.
It doesn't really require you to do anything.
Yes.
You just,
drill
and take the crude and export.
Yes.
And they get a lot of money.
We don't even, the rest of the country doesn't even see it.
We don't even see it. So they just, take the thing away and so on. But, it's good that we've had these shocks over time. Shocks that have, precipitated recession in our economy. We're going through another one now. But now it's becoming more obvious, that oil is not only a wasting asset, but, it's something that is likely to lose its
value,
allure,
relevance.
In the coming years, the way rubber did. Yes. Rubber was so great until the guys found synthetic rubber.
Yes.
Everything that we found, they found substitutes for. Mm-hmm. And today, the rest of the world has been thinking about, moving away from being oil dependent.
Yes.
So it's a time also to diversify. Mm-hmm. And I think that the states, must recognize that. Secondly, there's something that, was very strong when we had the 12 states. Mind you, these 12 states were the recipients of some remnants of the things that the regions had. And therefore, they were able to collaborate. Mm-hmm. I remember that the then Midwest state had collaboration with Benue Plateau and Kano states and East Central state. They had common ventures. They had timber companies, they had transport companies, they had irrigation in Kano, and these things were jointly, done. Yeah. One of the things that gives hope is that, we are seeing bits and pieces of those things through zonal formations.
Yeah.
States are coming together. The southwestern states have been talking about regional integration. Mm-hmm. It's just probably the way to go. So you can pool resources. I don't see what stops, a zone of states, having their railway system.
Yes.
I don't see what stops a zone of states having their, power stations.
Which may be too big for one state
to do. But economics of scale, yeah. You can go ahead and do that. So I see that actually the states have to show themselves to be more serious than they are. They are not just conduit pipes. They are not people who share in the national cake. It's not all about distribution. We have to produce the things.
And every state has something to offer. I was looking at one of these interviews or discussions here. We're looking at the resources, the natural resources, the mineral resources in each state. Abundant in every state, and we just forgot about all this and hung on to oil.
Well, that's only one of the alternatives, one of the options open to us. There's knowledge economy.
Knowledge, yes.
The service industry, the kinds of things that, say, look, you can go into ICT. We have young people who are building drones in Nigeria, for Christ's sake. They are building drones. There are people that are, manufacturing computers. There are people who are manufacturing textiles. They are doing things, adapted technology. This is not import substitution industrialization. Yes. They are doing things, that are organically, autochthonous. Things that they can do, themselves.
Locally, yes.
So it's not just about resources. Resources, that's good. But, so what of states that don't have resources?
They can use their
precisely. So, the thing to do, I think, is, let states get serious. Let them have economic summits. Let them, talk to their people and say, we cannot continue like this. The states themselves must become accountable governments.
As you say this, and we may have to end on this, what about leadership? What about the quality of persons that emerge as leaders? What about our process of leadership selection? Because all this you are saying cannot happen without a good crop of persons emerging as leaders at various levels.
I recognize leadership. I see it as a critical variable. But let's begin like this. You said a while ago, we are looking for people who are tried and tested. Where would we find those people from? See, leadership is not something that comes by accident. Part of the tragedy we've had in this country is we've had people who were either not prepared or who didn't even want those positions. We've had to push them. Reluctant people, so to speak. I think that leadership emerges in a society when you have, like in our situation, a plurality of leaders. Look, what we are looking for is something that works. This is why federalism does not say all of us must work uniformly. If Lagos State is working, then let other states say, why can't we be like Lagos? Okay? Now, I don't think that the governor of Lagos is a magician.
No.
No, he's not. But you see, leadership that has institutional checks is what we are looking for. You remember we talked about the military inheritances. Now, that's part of our problem. How to make those leaders self-restraining,
accountable,
institutionally restrained, accountable, transparent, and how we find ourselves in the governance process as co-governors and people who are participants.
Because it is a democracy. And
it's a democracy. Of the people. So what I'm saying is that democratic leadership is what we are looking for. And democratic leadership is not something that comes by imposition. Look, Father, let me tell you, I am sure that people in several communities in this country know those who should lead them. It is not those that godfathers bring. If the guys want to sit down to say who should govern us, they know.
They know.
Listen, it's like people in this country knowing all the criminals in our neighborhoods. We know them. We know those that are crooked people. And sometimes, because we still have some of those abiding values, you say, oh, look, my daughter is going to marry from that family. They say, God forbid.
No way.
It's a family of thieves. They may be very rich, but hey. So in the same way, in several communities in this country, people produce their leaders and they tell the parties, these are the guys we want. So we have such sanctions, and we must activate them and bring them to begin to work. To see that, for instance, there is one place that I know of now where traditional ruler decided, I'm going to appoint so and so people as chiefs, and the people said no.
No, we have no confidence in these people.
These ones don't even qualify. So those are the kinds of checks that we are looking for. Communities know. I mean, I come from Edo State. I'm sure that people in Edo State, when they see 1, 2, 3, they say, oh, we really love these guys to be governor. We love these guys to be commissioners. We love these guys to be, and so on. It's the recruitment process, the selection process. The parties have to be democratized. The spaces have to open up. But, we can't force these things.
We mentioned at the conference, we mentioned the need for internal democracy within the parties.
Yeah, but
we have had the opposition party in this country has been embroiled in all kinds of leadership crises.
Who's going to do that? Because, unfortunately, it's only when you have something to share, that there's some relative peace, there's consensus on how to share or how to steal better than sharing. But once you open these things up, it's the winner takes all, the highest bidder. And therefore, the people tell you, and this is the frightening thing. I mean, to aspire to be governor, they will tell you, you should have a minimum of 10 billion naira. Now, how many people can get 10 billion naira?
I don't want us to end on that frightening note. What? Just give us something positive. Let's end on something positive.
Now, you see, I think that, you know, the country has a lot of hope.
Okay.
The young people are very aggrieved because, you know, they go to school, they don't go to school well. They finish, they can't find jobs. The guys, you know, get even more frustrated. So there's frustration to get admission into school. There's greater frustration coming out of school after youth service. There's nothing that the society is offering you. So I'm saying, let our states get into this whole business of becoming more responsible.
On that note, we will bring this program to the end. It's been Professor Eghosa Osagae, Vice-Chancellor of the Igbenidion University, Okada. It's been wonderful having you in the studio.
Thank you, Father. Thank you. And I congratulate you for what you're doing.
Thank you very much.
I hope that, you know, you keep this up and will spread the gospel.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
God bless you.
You too.
Thank you.
Right.